This is VOA Africa. Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory in for Hashtag the Awards. It's Tuesday, August the 20th. This is Africa 54. Slave records in Angola show exploitation and a fierce resistance to the inhumane practice. The Open Arms charity vows to defy Italian authorities and dock its migrant ship at a Lampedusa island port. And a quick treatment for breast cancer gives women hope against the dreaded disease. Well, 400 years ago, the first enslaved Africans landed in what is now the United States. Those first African captives came from the Portuguese colony of Angola, brought to the shores of Virginia in 1619 by an English pirate ship that had seized them from a Portuguese slave ship. Some 6 million enslaved Africans came from Angola, most of them sent to Portugal's colonies, but some ended up in North America. Viewers Myra de Lesalet and Betty Ayoub traveled to Angola, where they heard accounts of the fierce resistance to the slave trade. Myra de Lesalet narrates their report.
For centuries, beginning in the late 1400s, slave traders in what is now Angola took part in transatlantic human trafficking. Historians say the Portuguese took much of the historical records when they left Angola after its independence in 1975. At the National Archive in Luanda, Januário Silva displayed manuscripts left behind that are at least 300 years old.
The name of the slave, gender, place of birth or origin, age, identifying marks, occupation. And at the end are notes where we can see the date of capture or other relevant information.
The ledgers also contain letters and other correspondence.
This one tells us about a situation involving slaves who have run away with the help or participation of some traditional authorities.
While some tribal chiefs profited from supplying captives to the European slavers, other leaders tried to protect their people. One was Njingamband, queen of the Ndongo and Matamba kingdoms in the 17th century. A warrior and diplomat, she fended off the Portuguese and Dutch throughout her 40-year reign.
She was the greatest protector of Angolan sovereignty, and it was 40 years of fighting for a woman in the 17th century, and she didn't get killed. She would hide in these floating islands of the Kwanza River, so they could never tell where she was. She always resisted, and she always won.
But ultimately, the Portuguese slave traders prevailed. They already had taken control of parts of the region since 1482. In 1617, they founded the port city of Benguela. There, this building, which is now Angola's National Archaeology Museum, was once a way station for thousands of human captives, says historian and archaeologist Paula Russa.
This was a warehouse. They waited here for the slave ships coming from Europe and the Americas to take them away.
The history is painful. Like many others in Benguela, Russa is descendant from slaves.
My mom is dead. I was raised in an orphanage, but my great-aunts told me, look, your great-grandmother was sent to Recife in Brazil.
Of the nearly 11 million enslaved people shipped from Africa to the Americas, almost 6 million came from what is now Angola. Fewer than 400,000 were sent to the 13 American colonies before 1776. Historians say a tiny fraction came from Benguela.
We had many American tourists on the cruise ships that used to dock here. And they wanted to come to this specific place because they said their ancestors left from here.
Centuries of colonization and slavery scarred Angola, as did recent decades of civil war. Today, the country has the third largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa, but at least a third of its 30 million people live in poverty. Hearst says Angola's female vendors, known as Zungueira, are Angola's everyday Queen Jingas.
She's a resistor. You see the Zungueira in action every day. She leaves the house, buys goods from farm women, and sells those goods on the street. She goes back home and pays her kids' tuition, pays the rent, pays for food.
Like Njinga, the Zungueira are standing strong for Angola. Mayra de la Salette with Betty Ayoub for VOA News, Angola.
Well, I'll be sure to join Africa 54 tomorrow as we hear more from VOA reporters Mayra de la Salette and Betty Ayoub about our young people in Angola and learning about the history of the slave trade in their classrooms. Now, the corruption trial of Sudan's former president, Omar al-Bashir, is underway in Khartoum. Bashir, who ruled Sudan for 30 years, is charged with illegally possessing foreign currency and receiving gifts in an illegal manner. A detective testified Monday that Bashir told investigators he had received millions of dollars in cash from Saudi Arabia. Bashir's lawyer told VOA the former president is confident of beating the corruption charges.
هذا شغل سياسي ضخم جدا انه الرئيس ده سرق وانه حول اموال برا السودان وانه هذا ما يقوله الاعلام ولكن ما يقال داخل المحكمه شيء اخر لانه يتعلق بالبينات لم تقدم حتى الان اي.
Well, meanwhile, Sudan's military leaders and the pro-democracy opposition have named some members of the Sovereign Council that will lead the country in a power-sharing transitional government. Now, still in Sudan, new protests have erupted in the capital, but this time outside the Sudanese Professionals Association. This is a labor union which played a key role in negotiating the new power-sharing deal between the military council and the pro-democracy movement. However, some opposition members say they are unhappy with the lack of transparency from the SPA. VOA's Aisha Sirai reports from Khartoum.
The SPA was one of the leading voices in the opposition coalition that negotiated terms for a transitional government with Sudan's military leaders who seized power in April. But after the formal signing of the agreement this weekend, small protests from opposition supporters have continued outside SPA headquarters.
When the SPA was organizing the protests, we did everything they asked and carried out their plans. But after the agreement, we reached a point where there's no transparency at all, and we don't know what's going on.
Some protesters feel that the SPA has strayed from their mission to be a politically neutral labor union.
Yeah, we are demanding that they pay attention and work on their main mission, which was what they call it, working on making strong unions and civil services.
Additionally, many protesters have been pushing the SPA to fight for the punishment of military leaders presumed responsible for the killing of over 100 protesters in June, as well as tracking down a dozen protesters who remain missing. But the SPA says those protesters are conflating their responsibilities with those of the new government.
They are dealing with SPA as if it is the new government in Sudan. This is not true. SPA will remain as an independent body. It's true that it has very good links with, and it will have very good links with the new government, but it will never be the government.
Still, the union says it welcomes the feedback from protesters.
We have several protests in front of the headquarters of the Sudanese Professional Association, and we don't think this is a bad thing. We think this is the Sudanese people are practicing their rights to make the political entities and the entities that are engaged in the political process accountable to their demands.
And to make good on his encouragement of the protests, Farid and other members of the SPA often answer to them by meeting demonstrators directly. taking questions from them and making note of their demands. Isha Sarai, VOA News, Khartoum.
Well, the intrigue surrounding the charity ship Open Arms grows daily. The charity now says it is willing to defy Italian authorities and dock the migrant ship at Lampedusa. The vessel, with about 100 migrants on board, is anchored in the Mediterranean Sea off the Italian island, demanding permission to dock after 19 days at sea. The charity has rejected several offers, including one from Spain, fearing the ship and the migrants could not withstand the 6-day journey to a Spanish port.
No, we can't accept Spain as a port. We cannot put the safety of all these people at risk. They need to be disembarked now. We are in a situation of humanitarian emergency. We cannot put the integrity of both those rescued and the crew at risk with 6 more days of navigation.
Well, the charity says many of the migrants on board are sick, suicidal, and close to mental breakdowns. The founder of Open Arms says some migrants are so desperate they even attempted to swim to the Italian island. The second ship, the Ocean Viking, operated by French charities Doctors Without Borders and SOS Mediterranean, is also at sea with 356 mainly Sudanese migrants looking for a safe port to dock. Now, 700 leaders from sub-Saharan Africa participated in this year's Young African Leaders Initiative. The U.S. launched YALI in 2014. Its flagship program, the Mandela Washington Fellowship, is funded by the State Department. The program brings young African leaders between the ages of 25 to 35 who excel in business, public management, or civic engagement to America. Sahar Majid reports in this story, narrated by VOA's Kathleen Schruck.
Some of Africa's best and brightest assembled in Washington for 6 weeks of networking and leadership training recently. At the end of their stint, these young Africans participated in the Mandela Washington Fellowship Summit in Washington, D.C. that was sponsored by the U.S. State Department. The program is known as the Young African Leaders Initiative, and its fellows are referred to as YALIs. Participants expressed enthusiasm for improving conditions in Africa.
So currently we are working on developing an app, which is a technology around safety for women and young girls who are specifically vulnerable into sexual and physical violence.
I'm a pharmacist by training, but currently I do more of research on health and social issues. I also do capacity building for young health professionals to improve their ability to render health and social services and for them to remain in country, because the brain drain in the health sector is increasing back home in Nigeria.
The United States is investing in Africa.
The White House launched its new Prosper Africa strategy in June that highlights American goals of promoting U.S.-Africa relations.
Empowering youth is at the heart of the U.S.-Africa relationship. Now, with your YALI experience, you bear a special responsibility to help build a better future for Africa.
This year's YALI Fellows were selected from a pool of 38,000 applicants. Their presence in the U.S. was also a cultural exchange, sending them to 27 educational institutions in 20 states across the U.S.
I think that the program is really a good one, because for the U.S. government to bring young African leaders who are making change in their community in one way or the other, and the fact that we have a mixture of people from different countries, and each of us is in a different sector, different experiences. So we're able to coalesce our ideas together.
The fellows have high ambitions for Africa, from empowering women to business management in their home countries, like Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Zambia, and Kenya. For Sahar Majid, Kathleen Struck, VOA News, Washington.
Well, we're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 at voaafrica.com. Still to come, any breast cancer treatment offers women more options to survive the disease.
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I am Sheikha Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international calling talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. It's man versus mosquito, and mosquitoes usually win. But now, technology has come to the rescue. Israel-based Bezigo's compact laser system claims to track the insects' movements and follow them with a red laser beam before sending a mobile alert to homeowners. The device, which can be placed in any room, is comprised of a sensor and a special lens that receives high-frequency video images. The device is expected to hit markets in 2020, with an estimated price of $169. According to the World Health Organization, mosquitoes are one of the deadliest animals in the world. Next up, meet the study tubers, the British teens who make money from studying. They have a growing fan base, and some are becoming celebrities among their peers. In Britain, children are bound by law to remain in some form of education or training until the age of 18. This means study tubers reach a huge audience that brands want to tap into. By monetizing their YouTube videos, putting advertisements on them, and doing collaborations with companies, being a study tuber is a lucrative business. And finally, the Australian bush is home to a bewildering variety of plants, many of which have only recently been studied. In Darwin, in Australia's Northern Territory, indigenous chefs are helping pioneer new recipes using native ingredients from the bush. This kitchen uses Central Australian desert seeds with kakadu plums from the Northern Territory's top-end region to make bread and baguettes. Some go to local restaurants and hotels, some to remote communities, and 400 bread rolls a week are sold to be served in the Qantas Airline Lounge in Darwin's International Airport. And that's what's trending today.
Well, it's time for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with the latest facts and figures on cancer. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Vincent. Hello, everyone. Well, get this. An estimated 9.6 million worldwide died of cancer last year. That's according to the World Health Organization. The WHO says cancer is the second leading cause of death around the world, with approximately 70% of cancer deaths occurring in low and middle income countries. In our Ask the Expert segment, we spoke with Dr. Kingsley Ndo, Assistant Professor of Global Health at the University of Washington, and asked him, what causes cancer?
It can be broadly categorized into like four things. One is infectious diseases, which infectious disease-related cancers are one of the most prevalent cancers in sub-Saharan Africa. There are some viruses that can act as a carcinogen, to cause cancer. So things like HPV, which is cervical cancer, is very prevalent in sub-Saharan Africa. HIV too, because HIV causes immunosuppression, and at the same time, it can also act as a carcinogen. And so when you have like an immune suppression, then the likelihood of the person having cancer increases. So that's why people that have HIV that is not well controlled have a higher likelihood of having certain cancers. Then the other thing that could cause cancer is environmental factors, like a constellation of things too, like, it could be lack of exercise, it could just be smoking, it could be your diet, food that is high in fat or other chemicals. It just could be other environmental factors that could lead to a mutation and eventually lead to a cancer. So that's just a broad category, but in that category there are just a lot of other things. Then the third is genetics. Some of us are born with certain genetic mutations that would give a higher likelihood of having certain types of cancers. The very popular ones are what we call the P53 mutation, the BRCA1 and BRCA2 that is very popular for breast. Genetics play a huge role, and that one we don't have any control over. We do have control over infections. If we can develop vaccines, the infection I didn't mention that is so popular is hepatitis B that causes liver cancer. So there's a vaccine for hepatitis B. There are vaccines for HPV. If you can develop vaccines, if you can avoid some of these infections or prevent some of these infections, you can cut down theoretically 25% of cancer cases around the world. And then the fourth category is just unknown. That's why there's still a lot of research going on to find out what causes cancers.
That was Dr. Kingsley Ndo, Assistant Professor of Global Health at the University of Washington, sharing some causes of cancer. Now, Betty Anyanwu Akeredolu is the First Lady of Ondo State, Nigeria, and she's chairperson of the Ondo State Cancer Control Committee. She's also a breast cancer survivor. Anyanwu Akeredolu says her role as First Lady and personal experience with cancer is a contributing factor in helping her raise awareness against the disease in her country.
So, when my husband became the governor, and of course, it became, how would I put it? It's no longer a secret that the wife is a survivor. Of course, people were curious, and they wanted to know what role I was going to play. And of course, I was very, very eager. I hit the road running, because if I can't say it, if I can't fight for those who don't have voice, I wonder who would. So immediately I began to put the awareness program together so that at least when I tell people that breast cancer, for instance, because that's the disease that the cancer that I experienced or had experience of, when I tell them that it's not a death sentence and they see me, you don't require any rocket science to know that you can beat the disease. With that conviction, I knew that I had to put myself out there and let the world know that after all, breast cancer is not a death sentence. There has been a remarkable improvement in the level of awareness, but a lot has to be done, because one thing is to raise the awareness. Another is for people to purge themselves of the misconceptions. If you only knew that breast cancer was caused by witches and wizards or by spiritual attack, you will still go to the church to seek help. You won't go to the hospital. So what it means is that you have to be persistent in the awareness creation, yes. And I believe that even the uptake of new knowledge or information is in stages.
Anyanwu Akeredolu has been a breast cancer survivor for 21 years. She says in addition to raising awareness, her other priorities include advocating for adequate policies and funding for proper infrastructures to prevent and treat cancer in Ondo State. Regular screenings and advanced treatments are helping more women survive breast cancer, but even when the disease is caught early, more than 200,000 U.S. women each year are faced with possible mastectomy or weeks of radiation. But a new study suggests that for some women, there is an easier third option. Here is VOA's Kevin Enox with the details.
After having a lumpectomy to remove stage 1 breast cancer, Wendy Liebarger expected the radiation treatments to keep her from her work as a pastor.
To have to travel 2 hours, 2+ hours out of my day each day for multiple weeks for radiation treatment, I wasn't sure how I was going to manage that.
But oncologist Julia White offered her another option. Rather than radiating the entire breast, she could get focused radiation to the small area where her tumor was removed, a treatment plan that took just 5 days.
When you look at women who do get a recurrence in their breast after lumpectomy, it almost always, 80 to 90% of the time, comes back to the same spot in the breast.
Dr. White led a study at the Ohio State University James Cancer Hospital that compared cancer recurrence among women who received full and partial breast radiation. It found that women with early-stage breast cancer who had full breast chemo had a recurrence rate of less than 5% after 10 years. They reported about the same results among women who had partial breast chemo.
Short 5-day treatment is just as good as the whole breast irradiation for 4 to 6 weeks.
While partial breast radiation isn't an option for every patient, it gives more women a less intense yet equally effective option when deciding if a lumpectomy is right for them.
It really facilitates more women having access to good radiation so that if they want to preserve their breast, they're able to.
Indeed, there is newness of life.
It allowed Wendy Liebarger to continue to do what she loves without skipping a beat.
I lived life fully through the treatments, before the treatments, after the treatments.
Researchers hope the study will encourage more hospitals to offer partial breast radiation. Kevin Enochs, VOA News.
That's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @LenorMoudou. Vincent?
Well, Lenore, thank you very much, and want to ask you to be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's Health Updates every Tuesday on Africa 54. But Lenore, come to, when you think about the increase of cancer cases, how significant is it for people like the First Lady of Ondo to come out and talk about it, talk about our own experience in this, with this dreaded disease?
It's very significant. As she mentioned in the interview, all eyes were on her because everybody knew that the governor's wife was a breast cancer survivor. So when people saw that she was coming forward to talk about her disease, to talk about her condition, and that she survived it, I think that was the most important message for her, that listen, I had breast cancer, but I survived it. I am the First Lady, and I tell you, this is not a reason to hide your condition. And she talked about, when we talk about this during the interview, she said, some women will hide, or some women will think that when it doesn't hurt, it's not something to worry about. So she really urges women to come forward. And we saw in the case of Governor Nyong'o as well, who came forward. Well,
Lenore, thank you very much once again. And that's our show for today. You be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, I want to wish you a very, very good evening.